Well, hello again everyone. It's Sunday morning and I've just given the shower tray another third coat in that damaged area, and it's not looking too bad, so I'll let that cure and we'll carry on with making up the former for our pedestal to cover up all those pipes and wires and stuff. Well, hopefully you can see where I'm heading with this. I've made this former so I can bend some of that cladding around it. What I'll do is I'll clamp the bottom edge along there, and then I can heat it up, bend it around, pull it nice and tight, and clamp the top edge on there. So I'm going to need to cut it to more or less the right size. If I cut it to the right distance that way, I can make sure it's square by making sure the edge runs along the edge here, and obviously to cut it reasonably the right size so I can get the clamps in to clamp it. But it will be oversized. I'm not going to try and cut it precisely the right size, because that way madness lies. We can always trim it up afterwards. Anyway, before I attempt all that, time to go and make myself a nice cup of tea. Right, I've got my tea. Let's crack on and bend this plastic. Well, there we go. That is all bent up. It's a little bit lumpy in places, not quite as smooth as it could be, but it's not too bad. So I'll leave that to cool for a little while, and then we'll release the clamps and see how much it springs back. It's bound to spring back a little, I think, but a bit won't do any harm. Right, well, this is back to ordinary temperature now, so let's release the clamps. Yeah, there's a fair bit of spring back in there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have another go and just try and get it a little bit more permanently formed. Right, that's cooled down. Let's release it again. Yeah, that's better really, isn't it? Still got a bit of spring in it, but that's fine, I think. Right, what I want to do now is, I don't really want this just to be one single piece. What I want really is for it to step up to the basin. So the first thing I'm going to do, I think, is to cut a top piece to cover the bowl. So we'll slice it like this, and then we'll have a big bit for the top and then a step down to the bottom bit. That might be a bit ambitious, we'll see. Don't need this anymore though. So because this is quite busy, I really want it to come down quite low, probably to about there-ish as the full size thing. I just don't want it to go all the way down. Or do I? No, I don't. Because of that vent and everything, that would be a messy solution, I think. So yeah, I want it to come down to about there-ish. So that's about 300 up off the floor. So I'll cut a section of that and then we can trim it, and we'll fix it with some battens. I think if we get the two sections fixed, and then what we can do is cut a template to fit that bit. Going to be tricky. So what I've done is I've used a square to transfer the measurements at 90 degrees of the inside of that lip to the top. So I'll trim off to those lines, and then we probably will just have to notch out for the 6mm perspex at the back. But we'll trim this off first and check it. We've just done a little test fit, and she needs a whisker off each side. I reckon I can do that with the electric planer. Well, that is a much better fit. Now I've trimmed it down a bit, and I do need to cut out for where those perspex fixing battens go. So I'll do that now with the jigsaw. Right, so that then will go in there like that. Perfect. Right, before I tackle fixing that, I'm going to have a nice cup of tea and some lunch, I think. Right, well, I've had my lunch, and the question is, what on earth am I doing? Where was I up to? What am I doing next? I've totally lost track of this a bit. I think probably the next thing to do is to cut up some batten to fix that pedestal thing, I reckon. I don't have a plan in my head, but it's gone. We're just going to have to wing it. Right, let's cut up some batten and hopefully it will all come back to me. Now the batten for this side should be easy because that's going to go straight up and down the whole way. I'll probably stop it short though, probably stop it about here because this area here is all a little bit tight. So stop it probably about here-ish. So I'll measure that and I'll cut that batten, and then we'll measure away from the wall to get it parallel to the wall. Obviously need to leave 1.5mm there. And all the way down, of course. And yeah, then we should be able to measure where the other one comes to, and we'll cut that and we'll take it from there. Who knows what will come after that. So there we go, that's that first batten fixed, and you might have noticed I just mocked it up and I've marked on the wall in pencil where the bottom of that larger section of the pedestal comes to. So I can cut a batten now to fit in there, and that can go sort of full height-ish. Well, now I'm going to measure and evenly space some fixing holes along the edge here. I'm going to fix it with screws and cups so that you can take it off relatively easily if there's any pipework problems behind. Probably will run a silicone bead along, I think I said this before, but you'll be able to just cut that with a Stanley knife if you need to get to it. Probably use number 8 screws, got some nice nickel cups. So yeah, let's do that then. Well, there we go. That doesn't look too bad, does it? You can see there's a bit of a tapering away gap there. You just can't pull that round because I think, as we discovered earlier, the walls are slightly out of square. You'll also notice there's no screw in that top hole there. I'd miscalculated, of course, as usual, and the batten, of course, doesn't go quite that far up. So what we'll do is, when we come to silicone this up, we'll just silicone a screw head on there to make it look okay, and it's perfectly solid, it's not going anywhere. So yeah, right, now we'll have to sort something out with the bottom, and what I want to do is cut one of these wings off that bottom bit so that it just curves round, and then we'll have to fill in that piece there. Now this is going to be quite tricky, and I haven't quite got it straight in my head yet, so it may go wrong. But let's have a bit of a stab at it and see what happens. So you can see I've got about 130mm to play with here, which should allow me to get that radius in. So the bottom bit, I'll just trim that bit off to start off with, and we'll see how we go. So what I need to do now, I think, I've offered this up and it's kind of okay, really. That goes around there like that. Ooh. Obviously it's got a bit of spring in it, so it won't stay in position. But what I need to do is cut a bit of batten to go in there, and that needs to be 120mm away from the wall, or rather it needs to, at the end of it needs to be 120, probably 120 less 1.5, so 118.5 away from the wall. I'm going to put a cable tie around these pipes, hold them all in a bit. Right, now I'm going to go and drill some holes in that other white bit of plastic in much the same way, and I'll be back in a second. Alright, so here we go. Now I've also made a little channel just there, just in case any water does get behind here or there's a leak from the pipes, then it's got a way to get out and alert us that there's a problem. If it was completely sealed up, then it could just pull behind there and we'd never know until it got really bad. Well, we lost the last bit of that because the camera on the phone cut out because it was too hot, would you believe? Anyway, the thing to do now is I need to cut a bit to fill that gap. Of course, I've got the radius that I need in both instances on these formers, so first thing to do is to dismantle that so I can use those again. Right, there we go. That curve should give us the back of that shape. So if I cut that out and then cut this off here, you should be able to slip that underneath and then just draw around the other curve, I reckon. Well, I've checked that and that's not actually too bad. That is reasonably good. So I've checked the outline here is roughly in line with the outside of that top part of the pedestal. So I'm going to cut out some of this angle, and my idea is to run the angle round and then glue it on with the adhesive for these panels, and then I'll have a bit there to glue onto the front, and I think that should work. Obviously I'm going to have to cut notches in here to get this to bend round, but we can do that, I think. So there we go, there's that ready to go on. So you can see what I'm going to do. I'm going to pretty much slide that in, glue that on, And then I'm going to make a corresponding one for underneath. Right, now the glue has dried in that, so I'll go and see if I can stick it on. That was a bit of an angle. That was a bit too quick. That hasn't quite set enough yet, so I need to leave that a bit longer. Well, while we wait for that to dry, I've stuck down the basin with some more of that panel adhesive. So now we're just waiting for stuff to dry. Right, well the adhesive's set on the sink, so I've taken the clamps off and put that cladding back on. I'm just going to fit this on here, and I'm not sure how. Might just have to wedge it up with some wood or something until the adhesive dries. Right, yeah, there we go, that's in, so that can dry overnight. I think we're going to do any more to that today, but it's starting to come together. Well, that's all for now. If you enjoyed it, press like, subscribe if you want to see some more, and ring the bell to be notified when we upload something new.